Okay.
And then I'm going to take this to Facebook also.
Okay.
All right, so we're live now.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. What is this? That's new.
What's that?
All right, so you should be able to share that. Damn, there's a lot of posts here. Oh, this is weird. So I guess they started a new little feed where, all right, so I can actually see what's going on Facebook as a preview now. That's new.
Oh,
See that? So it's the
interesting.
whole delay and everything. So this is going to be interesting. So I see you right now, and then I also see old you.
Oh. Okay, so just so you know, I only see you, like what's here right now. That's all
Good.
I see. That and
Yep.
that awesome purple car that I'm very jelly of.
I should bring that into the background. Just, got to keep it real for everybody, essentially.
Right?
Let me reload this. I want to get this shared to the Nort page, get a couple of people on.
Yeah.
Then we can get going. I printed out everything that I went over and texted to you, so we have that.
I did too. That's great.
I hate technology.
Email telling me that you're on doing this. That was funny.
That's cool. I didn't know that happens.
Yeah, I just got an email popped up.
We just put our daughter to sleep about 10 minutes ago, so it's always
interesting.
Maybe you can share it. I don't know why it's not coming up on mine.
Share it on Facebook, what we're doing?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Oh, that's why it's not live yet. Say
Oh.
something about this video.
Yeah, that might help, Whitney, if we make it live.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Killed before we even get started.
So you're on the Nort page with it live, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Or
not the group, but the page, right?
Now it is.
Gotcha.
All right, boom. Now it's live.
Okay. Awesome.
That was what I did wrong.
Okay.
I'm not good at this technology stuff like some other people.
Oh, you know what? I'm just happy you're handling that side of it because I'm definitely not that great at it. It's definitely intimidating to me.
It's very intimidating, and it's annoying having to figure it out.
Right? Yeah.
Especially on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
Good thing is we didn't share the link, so I don't have to worry about. Normally, when I'm doing these things, I have people coming in like to this stuff so they can actually interact.
Right.
Not really feeling like we're gonna do that tonight. Probably the next time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it should be live.
Okay.
So
it shows on my side that we're live on Facebook, but
okay. Yeah, it's showing that it's live. If you want to share it, we can, but for the most part, I just want to get the video feed. So anyway, thank you everybody who watches this in the future, as well as anybody who might be watching now. Whitney Wiseman, I'm here with, please help me because I'm never pronouncing your name properly. So I might have
It's just think of Lisa. It's Anissa.
Okay, Anissa. Yeah. Easy enough. All right, so myself and Anissa Coy are going to be doing this video series, 6 episodes per series, and we are going to continue it hopefully ever so often, split it up with little breaks so that we don't want to jump off a bridge. probably know who I am, and you probably know who Anissa is. So let's just get right into what we wanted to talk about tonight, which was cat events, being that there is a small little event, I should say, going on in Elcott. Did I say that wrong?
I think
Probably
it's
said it.
Elcott. I think it's Elcott.
Yeah. Elcott, and that is in Maryland. We have a lot of people from the organization that are over there helping out as far as just starting to get on the scene and get things moving, starting to move equipment into the area. But we thought this was a good opportunity, and we had this on our list of videos to do, and figured why not turn it into the first one, considering the fact that this hurricane season's probably going to be a little bit busier than most. I mean, I hope so, at least. I'm sure a lot of other people in our industry hope so as well, considering it's just like looking for a busy night at the restaurant. But we think it's really important to make sure that everybody getting into these situations understands what they're getting into specifically. It's very, very important to make sure that when you get into a catastrophe mindset and a cat situation itself, or that you're planning to, that you go about everything the proper way. Otherwise, you're not going to really make any money. There is an opportunity to get lucky and essentially make a good amount of money, considering there's plenty out there to be made. But at the same time, it's a huge opportunity for many businesses to fail. And granted, if you're lucky and you do well, then that's not really who we're here to talk about. We're here to make sure that we look out for those who have the opportunity to be successful in the right way and to minimize their risk as much as possible. I know we have a lot of different commonalities and things that we want to touch on. I think the first thing that we can really get into is just making sure that before you make the decision to get into a cat trip or to get loaded up and get on the road and call yourself a cat team and a disaster recovery team all of a sudden and buy some shirts and slap the 3-letter word on the back, you're official. Stick those magnets on your truck. The big question is are you in a good position to leave home before you consider leaving? Do you have everything where it needs to be before you can leave? And I think that's a really important part to start off, because that's a big starting point. Whereas before you even make any decisions, do any math, talk to anybody, make any connections, or anything else we're going to talk about on this list here, I think that's the best place where you can kind of decide whether it's for you or not for you.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, when this catastrophe or this large loss situation is gone, what do you have left? You have your business. And so your bread and butter, if you will, is what you're doing at your home base. So you're absolutely right, Whitney. Like, you got to make sure that you've got, can you take your resources away? If you leave your business, and I don't know what that is. Maybe you're your carpet cleaner. Maybe you're a restoration company only. Like, I don't know what your main business is, but can you leave that for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 3 months? Like, how long are you able to leave your standing business and know that you're going to come back and things are going to be okay? Because like you said, at the end of all of this, that's what's important, that your standing business, that your bread and butter is going to be okay, and that your clients that you serve all the time are going to be able to be without you. So I think that's a really important thing to think about.
Yeah, I see so many people that might leave their home base, pack up all their equipment, get on the road, and then they come back to what? Their bank account might even, they got lucky. Say they got lucky. Say they did well and they weren't lucky and there was nothing to do with luck and they were just very successful on the cat trip. But their consistent business that allowed them to have the assets in which they used to go on this cat trip are now potentially compromised. So, if you are going to do cat trips, I highly suggest that you set up a division of your company that is specifically for catastrophe situations, to whereas you have a go box ready to go. And we'll talk about all that stuff here in a little bit, but it's very important to make sure that you make that decision that this is a part of your business and not just, I want to go hang out with the big boys here for a week or two and go on a vacation and have a man trip, so on and so forth. Because it's not all it's shined up to be. Large scale, small scale, residential, commercial, industrial. It doesn't matter how you cut it. It's enjoyable. It's part of my life. It's something that I'm addicted to. I definitely get the urge to leave every time that there is a storm anywhere in the entire country. And
Yeah.
I just want to be there more than anything in the entire world. And you just kind of have to learn after time that there's a time and a place for everything. And I think personally, even after Texas was the big slap in the face reminder to myself that everybody's getting into the cat game and everybody's trying to travel. And it's even harder now than it ever was to make money. The way we did it a long time ago, we're not even able to do it anymore in certain places due to lackadaisical licensing restrictions and allowing anybody to get into the area. But that really messes things up. But you got to make sure you are ready to go. You are dedicated, your company's ready, you have people at home that can take care of every job that comes up, new job, every job you have actively going, and potentially any calls you get from past customers on warranty work, so on and so forth. Not only that, you have to make sure your marketing and advertising is going on. You don't want to have anything fall back. Your home base has to act like nothing happened, which means you have to have a very, very strong structured business back home that is able to essentially function without you, whether it's a cat event or whether you're going to a training or whether you're going on vacation or whether you just don't feel like being there and you feel like essentially disappearing. So that's one big thing that I think that we need to definitely focus on. And then with that is your home base ready for you, and are your assets ready to leave without you affecting this on your day-to-day? You know, you have to make sure that your day-to-day is covered as soon as your day-to-day is messed up, because I mean, when you're traveling, a lot of times that's what's funding these events. So that's very, very important. Was there anything that you thought was a little bit more important that you wanted to add into that beginning part before we get
I really think you hit the nail on the head, Whitney. You know, it is very important to understand that, you know, it's really easy to get enamored with the numbers here, right? Like, we get in a cat loss situation, a lot of cleaners and restorers can run out there and do in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, what they would normally do an entire year in business. However, if they're not equipped and able to handle bringing that revenue in the door, because we're just talking about doing the work, right? Like, it's one thing to have the manpower and the equipment to go out there and do the work, but do you have the financial resources to, again, support your business back home? And do you have the ability to get all of that built out quickly? Because again, we're talking about as much work as, you know, some people would do in a whole year, right? Like, you got to be able to get this stuff built out in 2 or 3 weeks and back out the door. And that takes resources, manpower, time, whatever that is. So I think it's really important to make sure that, you know, there was a time, I think, when in this industry, you could kind of like fly off the cuff and just be like, you know what, there's a big storm coming, I'm just going to go. Like, I'm going to go out and I'm just going to wing it. And I think the time of winging it is over, in my opinion.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, winging
There's too many
it.
people that are drawn to the sexiness of what so many people used to portray. And the funny thing about life is everyone's going to talk about their good times at the casino, per se. Right. About how much money they lost.
Yeah. So, oh, no.
For their bad days.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Whitney. And, you know, it is very sexy, if you will. Like, there's a big adrenaline rush, and I feel you know, I'm watching all the stuff going on in Maryland, and I'm thinking about when we were back there with Irene, and I'm like, oh, I could just get on an airplane and I could just, you know, like, I feel that pull. And yet, you know, there's a part of me, and I don't know if it comes from the years or the experience or whatever, I don't know, or what. And I just go, okay, I'll just like kind of take a step back, just hold on. You don't have to run out to everything. But there's a big pull, there's an adrenaline rush, and it's sort of like being, in my opinion, kind of like an adrenaline junkie. You can get into that with cat losses. And you just need to be aware of that and just be strategic. So this jumping into it and, you know, coming off, like I said, just, you know, let's wing it, doesn't fly. And especially in this day and age with the litigation, with the liability that comes up, you can literally bankrupt and shut your business down really, really fast. So that's kind of why we're doing this, right, Whitney? Like, we want to talk about those things, not just the cool side of, hey, yeah, let's go do this, but also make sure you don't do this.
Exactly. I mean, it's making sure that people don't follow in the same footsteps as so many. So
Yeah.
we can essentially put the boards across the potholes in the road, if you will. It's not to say you're not going to feel the bump a little bit, but you may, your car's not going to get beat up. You may get a little bit farther down the road, if you will. So
Exactly.
with that being said, the first thing that I've learned when I've traveled, and I've traveled a few times to a few different places, to say the least, I've probably done more cat work than I have. I guess it's about equal as far as residential to cat work. I think I've traveled to about as many events as I have been in the business years. So that's a good thing. And it's put some scars and some tissue on the back. But going into it, you have to make sure that you have the proper insurances, transferable state to state, workers' compensation that does the exact same thing. You have to make sure that you have these things set up before you leave. You do not want to be bidding a job and lose it based off of the fact that you don't meet the insurance requirements that somebody else that you're bidding against can meet. And if that is the sole reason you lose a job, which I can tell you honestly, it has happened to me, that sucks. And it's simply because of the fact of weekends and, can't get a certificate added in enough time, and it's opportunities and them passing you by before you can take care of certain things. So it's not to say that you cannot grab the information and get the insurance after the fact. Of course you can. But it takes time for it all to be bound. It takes time for it all to take effect, and you can't go utilizing it right away. And if it does and something happens, it doesn't work that way. So,
and Winnie, don't they need to think about like the difference between commercial, a big commercial cat loss and a restoration cat loss, right? Like those are different types of insurances, right? That we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, some of these commercial facilities require bodily injury. They require, obviously the automobile, the liability, the workers' compensation, your basic policies. But rather than $1-2 million, they require 2-4, or they require $4 million, $5 million policies. Depending on who you're working for, you could even have up to 10. Some places have clearances that you have to basically get. Some places you have to essentially go through their application process just to be approved to be on site and on property. Same thing with a lot of your vendors and your employees. So if you have government contracts, if you have any of these things, you want to make sure you go through all the steps ahead of time to make sure that everybody has what they need credentials wise, so that you don't have issues on the ground.
And this is going to be this is really going to be I'm sorry, I mean, interrupt you, but this is hugely also dependent on the state we're in, right? Like Utah is incredibly different, and I'm on the West Coast. So Utah is incredibly different to work in than Idaho, say, or even California. Like they have big, Texas, look at cat losses in Texas. You and I were just talking about this the other day, and the difference between requirements and legalities and licensing and insurance versus Florida, right? So that's a big thing to take into account, is what state is it that you're talking about going to as well?
Yeah, you have to look state by state, and beforehand, you have to make sure you work with lawyers in different states, and you're not going to understand that state until you've been there before. The more states you go to, the more contracts you'll have that work for you in those specific states, or the better your contract will be to work for you in whatever state you go to. Speaking of contracts really quickly, you have to make sure on your contracts that wherever your home state is, you make sure that you have a line within your contract that basically says if anything is fought and anything has to go to court, litigation, arbitration, mediation, whatever you choose to put in your contract, you got to make sure that you have it so that it happens in your home state. so that you don't have the expense of going back and forth to these places. Because remember, when you go home, you're home and you can't leave again and come back and leave again and come back and leave again and come back. You don't want to deal with that. That's just so important. But back to the insurances, make sure you have your pollution liability. Make sure you have your general liability. Make sure you have your automobile. Make sure you don't just have minimum coverages. Make sure you max out a lot of the coverages. Make sure, well, not max them out, but make sure you go far and beyond where you need to be. This is for cat work. Even if you're just turning them up before you go out of town, cranking it up and saying, hey, I need $10 million of coverage and I need everything under the sun for the next 3 months. Turn it on. Thanks. I need it. They can sell you a policy for a short period of time to do specific things like catastrophe situations, and you can increase your coverage for the things that you're going to do. If your guys are going to be operating bobcats, if you're going to be setting up heavy equipment, if you're going to be using gas, diesel fuels and fueling and refueling, using commercial trucks and trailers, all these different things have different liability insurances, different workers' comp insurances. So make sure that you're not just out there with your janitorial insurance and everything else that people do wrong as far as what we're doing. But I mentioned the documentation on the contract, which gets us into our next topic, which is essentially documentation and contracts, making sure that you have all these things prepared before you leave. Make sure that your contract is 100% ready to go to any state, wherever you're working, and just check with your attorney before you leave to make sure that wherever you're going, they add any addendums or clauses or requirements that are needed by that said state. As far as documentation is concerned, make sure you have folders and files created with backups of everything that you need out there. Because remember, you're not going to possibly have your computer. You want to make sure you bring a computer and a printer so that you can print and make photocopies of these documents that you're going to have in folders. And you want to make sure you have everything set up and ready to go. So when you go there, you're ready to handle as many jobs as you thought you were going to get in your best day. If you think you're going to get 100 jobs, then take 100 contracts, 100 job set documentations. And if you don't use them, next time you will. So bring them, because finding paper at a Staples that went underwater is...
That's right.
Being in the middle of nowhere. I mean, when we were in Minot, North Dakota, I mean, we were closer
That's
to
like the middle of nowhere, dude.
Minot?
I've been through there on a Harley. There's nothing there.
No. They do have a pita pit, which was like, I mean, saving grace. And they paid people more money there than anywhere I've ever seen in my entire life, all because of the oil fields. So gotta love oil fields. I wish they were around my area. I guess I'm glad they're not around my area.
No.
So, documentation and contracts are super important. And I know we have a lot of documentation and some contracts available, and we're going to be adding more. And we are looking to, this is for the organization side of things, we're looking to really add a lot of support from a state-by-state basis, so that when you go to these places, you can click on a state and you'll have a set requirements as far as what we can find. Not that it's going to say it's everything that's out there, but we're going to do a little bit of research for you guys to help you get on your way and start to figure out where to look as far as, who does their Department of Business, professional regulations, those type of, organizations, where their websites are, if you need to get incorporated in a certain state, where to go if you need to, lawyers in that state that work with restoration contractors, possibly things like that. So,
and Whitney, if we don't have those in the resource area for the group, I do a lot of accounting and licensing stuff for different businesses in my other business that I do. But you can go to, most states have an actual business licensing website that's just to do with licensing regulations for businesses and different types in their state. So bare minimum, you guys, if you're going to go out and you're going to do cat losses, and go do your own due diligence, like go look and see some states, like for instance, I know I mentioned Utah before. We've done several cat losses for fire in Utah. I don't know why, it's just a very crazy state for fire loss or cat losses when it comes to fire stuff, wildfires. And so like you have to be actually a licensed business in that state. I can't just come from Washington State and go do cat losses there unless I have a Utah license. So what I've done is I partner with a great, awesome company that I've connected with that actually did my class. And so we subcontract under them. So I make sure I have my right insurance, right, to be able to go do those losses, but I don't have to have a license because I subcontract under them. So I actually have to bill under that company. So again, that can be a way to go, but obviously I have a good relationship with this company. I know them because again, you're billing under someone else that's going to get a check in their name that's for services that you did, right? Like there's the whole nother topic there that we won't get into, but yeah, so you have to, you can definitely do your own due diligence and go on to any state has a business licensing website where you can go look at what their requirements are, and it would really behoove you to know what those are. Different states are different, you know.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
extremely important. And
Mm-hmm.
my biggest lesson was being up in Minot. You never know what you're going to have happen. Literally, after a week of working, which was the initial, I mean, the town was still a disaster at this point in time, and no one even really got there yet. But after a week of being up there in the initial week, they set up a entire structured, organized process for everybody in the industry to essentially follow.
Yeah.
And you went into a room and you went table by table by table by table by table by table. You had a packet you had to fill out on your way, and essentially you were getting incorporated with the state, you were getting a bond with the state, you were getting insurance through their insurance agency that they wanted you to get insurance through. You were
Yeah.
getting, I had to get my general contractor's license through the state.
Yep.
I had to do FBI background checks for all of my employees and anybody who was planning on being on jobs. We had to get registered with the National Guard. And there was also another thing that we had to do for the sheriff's department as well. And that was all in one room. It was just the craziest thing I've ever been through, but
Right.
they were smart about it. They didn't want people coming from all over the country coming to their area. It's what Texas should have done.
Right.
Texas just let everybody and their mother
Yeah.
come in, and there was no control. And that's the one thing that you could control people. At least they were checking. It's like, you listen, if you're a general contractor in Florida, you're good. You can be a general contractor here. You don't have to take our test, but at least you're qualified. You have a business license in another
Right.
state. You're qualified,
Right.
and they said you're good to go. So we'll take that due to these circumstances. They
Yeah.
knew I wasn't planning on staying up there and building houses, but
Right.
it was what it was. So, go, restore forest division that we have still sitting up in Minot, North Dakota for some random reason. But it is, these are the things that we need to deal with and we need to understand. It's not just load up the truck with as much stuff as you can, fit a little bit more in there, which isn't even safe at the end of the day. We'll talk about safety here in a little bit, and get on the road and go do this and get there as fast as you can. I mean, that's how I was brought into this industry. It was stick as many axles as you can stick on the truck, as many P200s in the trailer as you possibly can. You and JR get in the trailer and you drive 24 hours straight until you get there. Oh, you don't have CDL licenses. You don't need to have logbooks. You don't need to do this. You don't need to do that. You don't need to take naps. You get gas, you drink caffeine, and you make it all the way there, and you don't stop until you get there. And it's like, then you get there, and it's work for 48 hours. And this is before people understood chasing. This was back in 2005, 2006, Cedar Rapids. That was my first event. That was the one that taught me a lot about where I really fell into the whole world of restoration and what was really out there. And it was an eye-opener. And I think it draws a lot of people to it. And it is sexy. And like I told you, I'm addicted to it. I talk to Aaron and those guys that are over there. And, I'm just like, oh, man, how is it? Are you got any jobs? What are you walking today? What are you guys doing? Oh, man, yeah. And you're really getting into it with them. It's just, I miss that stuff so much. I used to only do cat work. So having my own company for the last 10 years, it's like every opportunity I've had over the past 10 years to travel with my company, I have. But at the same time, it's like, oh. And sometimes I haven't been able to hold back when I should have, which is tough.
I
But
always liken what we do, Whitney, to like being an ER doctor.
100%.
It's like, it's horrible hours, hard work, grueling, your body aches at the end of the day, but it's some of the most exciting, rewarding work that you'll ever do. And that, I mean, I hope anybody listening to us right now isn't going, well, holy crap, Anissa and Whitney, I'm not going to go do this stuff because you guys are making it sound horrible. No, that's not what we're saying. We're wanting you to be informed. We want you to know there's stuff you got to have in place. Have your ducks in a row, get your business together and do this right. And it's freaking awesome. But no, it's not all a walk in the park. It's not just a trip to Disneyland.
It's the hardest thing that you'll
Yeah,
ever do in your entire life. It's an
yeah,
emotional roller coaster from
yeah.
being on the lows of chasing work and not knowing where your paycheck and contracts are getting signed, and the highs of signing the jobs and getting your deposits and your checks and paychecks, and the
And
lows.
working 22 hours straight, like those are not just stories, people. That's really
22 hours straight.
okay. So, like, seriously,
48 hours straight with
well,
maybe a cat nap in the truck for 45
okay,
minutes
well,
and
you're way
telling.
more of a stud than I am because I did, I think I did 23 and a half hours one time. I'll never forget. We were in Maryland and I have long hair, as you can tell, and kind of thick. And I like, like dirty, sweaty. Like I'm on the West Coast, you guys have like humidity back there that's ridiculous. I'm not used to that. So I go back there and I'm like dying, sweating. So I'm like taking 2 showers a day if I can, right? Because we kind of had limited hotel and stuff going on. And so like I didn't have time to dry my hair. Because like we'd sleep for 5 hours, you run through a shower real fast, wash your hair, and so my hair's wet. So I'd like put it in this ponytail, like hook it all up right at the end of the day. I get back after 20 hours, 23 hours, and I take my ponytail and my hair was still wet. So I told my son who was with me, I'm like, dude, I'm going to have a mold remediation job going on in my hair if we don't get like calmed down here. So yeah, it's not all just like fun and games.
I listen, I wish I could take all the credit for it, but part of it is based off of the fact that we had a boss that didn't care about us, but was willing to throw us into the places that gave us all the experiences that we have.
Yeah.
And I had a partner, if you will, a guy who basically
Mhm.
came up in the industry. We came up side by side, working for the same company, doing the same stuff for the same company.
Mhm.
If I didn't have him pushing me as much as I think I might have helped push him a little bit, hopefully,
Mhm.
I know that I couldn't have done a lot of the stuff I did without him being in the truck with me on the drive up there or whatever, telling people, the chicken sandwich makers, people ask you what a desiccant is. You tell them it's a chicken sandwich maker. You throw the chicken live in this end and it spits out a chicken sandwich. You go, we're heading to the next fair, come see us. And everyone just starts dying laughing. And these are stories that I don't ever forget, whitewater rafting and going in the caves and stuff like that. That's, where we came from. And if I
Right.
didn't have positive people in the company that I was in at that point in time, I don't think I would have stuck around a long time and I wouldn't be where I am today by any means. So, I got to
Whitney,
get.
I think that's a really good thing that you just said right there. When you guys are talking about going out to these cat losses and these type of situations, it's very important that, and I know we might be jumping a little bit around, but
It's fine.
we were going to talk about crew, right? Like
Yep.
it's really important to think about who you're going to send out there. Let's say there's people from your company. Who are you going to send out there in your company? Like the personalities, the how these people can work together depending on, there were some people in our company we knew darn good and well we weren't going to send them out to a cat loss. They like their routine, they like their NBC at 8 p.m. Like they were not people to go on cat losses. That was not going to work out well, right? So but then there were the others that were like, oh yeah, we can go on the fly, and we kind of like they change things around as they go, and they like adventure. So you need to think about that, right? Like when you're taking people from your company, and then who are you mixing together? Like if you're sending a crew out there, what 4 people are you sending out? Are 3 of them going to work real great, but this one is just really just kind of an off? Like you got to think
That's
about
a
that.
really good point to make as far as crew goes, because these guys are going to be spending 24 hours
Oh
a
yeah.
day together for the next X amount of time, however long they're gone, sleeping in
They're going to be
hotel rooms,
sweating together.
usually
Yeah.
sweating together, smelling each other's nastiness, doing laundry together,
Oh
sleeping
yeah.
in the same room, showering in the same shower. You
Yep.
better hope that they respect each other.
Yes.
It's tough to find someone to travel with. And, I got really fortunate granted, we were good friends in college. These were my best friends in college. And our brother, one of my best friends in college, his brother owned a disaster company. Orlando got hit with a hurricane and he needed laborers. So what do
Go.
you know? We all entered into the restoration industry,
Mhm. Mhm.
head first. Me and I'll give a big shout out to J.R. Schiller, James Schiller. He's over with National Drying Technologies. They're doing huge things, and he's a huge part of what they're doing over there. And honestly, it's who we know in the industry and the people who we've had the opportunity to work with and the opportunity to learn from.
Mhm.
Personally, those are the only reason why I am where I am today. And that's not even to say that I'm anywhere crazy special. But at the same time, I consider myself to be very, very blessed with the opportunity to have learned from some of the industry's founding fathers, as well as worked with some of the individuals who I consider to be the best in the business. So
Mhm.
um, it's really been an opportunity. And, these events, we're talking about a lot of negatives. These
Right.
events are
Right.
are awesome opportunities, and the group of individuals that you will meet that travel to every single event that has ever
Mhm.
happened and will happen. And it does change, and the faces change, but there's a select group of people that you will see on every single event. And
Yeah.
it's a little circus. I like to call it a little carnival, because everywhere I go, I run into the same people, whether it's the guys from California, Colorado, the guys from, Illinois or Indiana, the guys from New York, the guys from, all over the
Mhm.
place. Oh, I wish
Yeah.
Corey Pitts was still around.
Mhm.
I would talk to a lot of people recently and ask them, have you ever know who Corey Pitts was? Because everyone's talking about getting equipment rentals and being a big dog in equipment rentals. And
Mhm.
nobody knows who Corey Pitts was. You know, he was the original OG of
Mhm.
large scale desiccant rental.
Oh, wow.
15,000, 20,000 CFM desiccants, 5,000 CFM desiccants, more than anybody in the entire country. Um, Hands down. Belfour, Munters, they had to go to him. It doesn't matter who you were, you couldn't touch his fleet.
Wow.
And it was one of those situations where it kind of gets me into the reason why I kind of say this is you have to understand your business model, because if you build a business model based off of storms and supplying large scale equipment to a bunch of people that are essentially busy constantly all the time, what happens when they're not busy?
Right.
What are you going to do? And,
Mhm.
unfortunately for Corey, um, it was a really rough 4 or 5 years without any storms. We had that dry patch where, I mean, literally it was just really dry. Tornadoes weren't happening. A lot of no flooding was happening. No hurricanes were happening. I mean, restoration was basically just pipe breaks and this and that, the day to day stuff. So
Mhm.
having an operation like that was just the worst thing that could have happened to a good guy. So
Mhm.
regardless, um, get into the next thing that we're talking about,
Mhm.
which is communication. I think that this is a
Yeah.
huge one, and the keys this year was the big one for me. This was the first time where I literally had to have a satellite phone in order to get in touch with anybody on mainland. And the fact that we were able to get in so early, there weren't any services yet. People weren't supposed to be there yet. You could barely find ice besides the one or two places they were having it for, first responders, essentially.
Yeah.
Um, there were no groceries. You had whatever you brought down there with you, and it
Yeah.
was what it was. But communication, make sure you have a phone,
Yep.
cell phone, obviously, not a dial up, not a landline. You're not going to use that there. Make
Mhm.
sure you have a cell phone. Make sure you buy a secondary pay by payment, maybe a month to month, or an AT&T. If you're on AT&T, get a Sprint. If you're on Sprint, get a
Right.
this. If you're on
Yep.
Verizon, get whatever. Make
Because
sure.
towers could be down, right? Like you could have
Exactly.
a Verizon cell phone where you're at, and those towers are down the area. It doesn't do you any good.
And make sure that they don't use the same towers, because a lot of the companies use and rent the towers from each other. So I like to use a Sprint and then my secondary will be AT&T or Verizon, because they run on different services.
Yeah.
So Sprint did really well down in the Keys eventually, as soon as the
Mhm.
first tower got power back on. But before the tower had any power, there was nothing past probably, I think, mile marker, I think it was like mile marker 80 or 90 or something like that. So satellite phone was all that we could have that worked, which is what it is. And you kind of have to deal with that. So make sure you have a satellite phone after your secondary phone, because if you're going down to a situation like this, or Puerto Rico, or who knows, anywhere where you can literally not have contact with somebody. Mine on North Dakota.
Right.
If you don't have Verizon up there.
So yeah, like you think Puerto Rico might be in the middle of nowhere? I'm here to tell you, mine on North Dakota is, I'm serious, guys, it's the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's in the United States. But
Sprint service did not work. I literally had to go sign up for a Verizon service while I was mine up, because
by the way, I have Verizon. Why do you think we have Verizon? Because the West Coast is like Verizon, and especially the Northwest.
Oh yeah,
Washington,
Northwest.
Oregon, Idaho, Montana, North Dakota. If you don't have Verizon, you're kind of SOL. So
yeah,
those are things you need to know about, right?
Towers. What's that?
Those are things you need to know about. And you
have to understand these things, because you just need to know and just do a little research, which is pretty easy. When you're back at your office and you have internet and cell phone, you can make calls to people in that area and say, hey, what's the best cell phone provider in that area? Go on to Norp or something online and figure, post a question. I'm going down to the Keys. What's the strongest cell phone provider? What's working now? Stop at Best Buy on your way down there and grab a little pay-as-you-go phone, a little track phone, whatever. Pretend like you're, a spy for a little bit, and
get me a burner phone so nobody can trace me. No.
Exactly. And I truly think that it's important to get a satellite TV dish. They're very, very cheap. Yeah. For the money, it's extremely cheap. You can get.
So why would you say that, Whitney? That's interesting to me. Why would you say that?
One thing is morale. If you don't have a connection to the outside world, it's like cabin fever, and it really gets a little nuts. Secondarily, making sure that you can track things, once the weather is passed and there's no cable services, having that access to the certain channels to be able to see what's going on allows you to have a little bit of an edge as far as what's tracking weather, what's doing this, what's doing that. Because I can get satellite TV, whereas I won't even, and I can get set phone, but I can't get internet. I can't get phone service and reception and anything in certain areas. So your sat phone and your satellite TV are basically your landlines, or your last resort, and they'll always connect. It doesn't matter if there's a zombie apocalypse and somebody takes over the world, they're always going to connect as long as those satellites are in the air. So that works.
So what would you tell everybody? Like, I'm asking, because this is intriguing me. I'm learning something here. How would you go about finding out how to get that in that area? Like, what do you do?
Well, satellite is satellite. So most, you have Dish and DirecTV. DirecTV doesn't do month to month, but Dish does a month to month program, which is essentially designed for people who have RVs and things. So if you're going, you use it for a month or you don't use it for a month, there's no service activation. And then they have a satellite dish that comes in a little tray, if you will. It's not your standard satellite dish. This one, you point it north, or you point it east, I think. Don't get me wrong. Don't sue me. You point it in the direction it tells you to point it, and essentially it does the moving, and it does its own finding itself. So you stick it on top of your camper, because I use a camper, because it's just impossible to find housing on these situations. So I just usually bring our camper with us, and it sleeps our crew, gets us going. We're there, easy done. Put it right on the roof, plug it into the camper or right into the cable box, and hook it up to a TV. I mean, it's super, super easy, and it only costs like $350 or something like that, and it's nothing. And that's awesome. Stay connected. What's going on in the world? Where am I? What's the weather going to be? Is there a tornado watch going on right now?
Good idea.
It's not a necessity by any means, and you can definitely survive without it. It's whereas a satellite phone and a primary phone are probably your basic two that you should not go anywhere without when you're doing cat work.
Right.
If it's in Maryland, the likelihood of, and it's from flooding, the likelihood of you losing cell service is pretty minimal. But if you're in California and there's been a bunch of wildfires,
Yep.
you're probably not going to have them. If you're in a hurricane devastated area, the likelihood is you're not going to have it. So those are things you need to consider.
Yep.
We'll jump into equipment next. Equipment inventories are so important, and just because you have one currently doesn't mean that that's anything to do with what I'm talking about. I'm specifically talking about an equipment inventory that has to do with what you are taking out of town. And you need to inventory everything from the pads of paper that you're taking to how many rolls of toilet paper to everything that you're taking, so that you have an itemized list of what you spent on that catastrophe situation, down to the toilet paper, the toothpaste, the things that your guys, peanut butter and jelly, guys. I love peanut butter and jelly. So you got to make sure you have your peanut butter and jelly. And if you ever meet me and you bring me peanut butter and jelly, love you forever. Raspberry, by the way.
Raspberry. All right. All right. I'm taking notes.
Taking notes for people out there, just in case, I'll make it myself. Please don't put any roofies in my peanut butter and jelly. But make sure you have your equipment inventories, because if you don't know what you're taking, you're not going to know what you're supposed to bring home. And every one of those assets, granted, not the toilet paper, because you're not bringing that home, I hope, but the dehumidifiers, the air movers, the air scrubbers, your hydroxyls, your ozone machines, your vacuums, your everything from your vacuum hoses to your connections, to your ends that you're taking with your vacuums, how many bags you took with you, so that if you get there, you get to a job and it's going to take you X amount of time. Oh man, I need more right away. I'm going to need more because 20 bags isn't going to make it. We just got a $2 million job. Hey, Justin, with, Excel, do me a favor, send me so much, whatever. These people take care of you, but if you don't know what you need, they can't help you. So make sure you know what you have. And you need to make sure that your trucks and your trailers and everything are inventoried with it. Part of the inventory is making sure that you check the functionality and the safety of everything that you're using as well, because you don't want to travel with something that's broken when you could be traveling with something that's working. You don't want to have a truck that's going to break down in the middle. And once again, here's a story from me. You don't want to break down in the middle of nowhere in between Louisiana and Arkansas, or not Arkansas, Louisiana and Alabama, and that stretch of highway where basically I think the only thing that happens is people get murdered and eaten by some cousin. It might also be his husband. Yeah, you don't want to do it, because you end up staying in these hotels that literally have roaches crawling out of them. Like, plan your trips, plan your stops, and make sure that you check on your trucks and make sure your trucks, your trailers, every aspect of your vehicle. If you have a diesel, bring DEF fluid. If you don't have DEF fluid, well, good for you, because DEF fluid sucks. If you have a trailer, make sure you have 2 extra tires, not just 1. If not 2, make sure you have 3, because I can guarantee you are going to get a flat during a cat situation. There are so much crap in the streets. Besides that, you want to make sure you have spare parts for these things, because remember, you're leaving your hometown and whoever sells you your stuff has parts for your stuff there. But when you break down in the middle of nowhere, you're not going to have a part. Bring a spare tire for your truck. Bring a spare tire for your van. All these things. So if you get a flat tire on the side of the road, you're not riding your donut all the way to California, or you're not having to buy a $500 tire from some guy in the middle of nowhere that can't get it for 3 days.
Right. And not to mention, Whitney, like when you get to where you're going, the store that might carry your part could be part of the cat loss. So, you gotta think about that. So, and if you have a diesel truck, or you have, like with our truck and trailer that we travel with, we have all kinds of spare stuff that we take on with us just to make sure that we're okay.
You have to be your own source. You have to pretend like you're going somewhere, like you're going to work on an island and you have one shot to get everything there.
Right.
Granted, you can get things shipped, but I can promise you this: figure it out. And I can, call me after you have your first FedEx shipment, 2 or 3 days after an event, and you tell me how fun that is to figure out. And then you'll understand where I'm coming from when I say just make sure you have a couple extra PPEs in the back of your truck, because you're going to need them. which
Right.
gets us into clothing, PPEs,
Yep.
tools, etc. for your
Yep.
labor and your crew.
Hmm.
Oh man, I had to spend so much money during Sandy going to Menards, which is an amazing store, by the way. I wish we had that down here. And buying hundreds of razor knives, hundreds upon hundreds of gloves, hundreds upon hundreds of blades and everything for it, a couple hundred hammers, a couple hundred this, a couple hundred that.
Right.
That is not affordable when you're doing it during these times, especially when you have to literally bribe the managers of stores to give you the stuff
Right.
before they put it out on the floor so that you can actually get what you need to get your job done the next day because you told so and so director of said organization for the government that you're going to have X amount of people working in hard hats, gloves, eye protection with the right tools to get the shit done tomorrow. But you show up and you got 20 hammers sitting in your truck.
Right.
Good job. It's like, I hope your hammers are, electric, because
Right.
that is not going to work.
No.
Bring extra PPEs, bring extra clothing. When I talk about clothing, guys, I'm talking about make sure you get those cool shirts made that say emergency response team on the back at the neon
Yeah.
color.
Yes.
It works not only for advertising, but it also is very effective so that you're not having your employees getting ran off of job sites when they think
Hmm.
someone's trying to sell something or do something. If they're wearing a big bright shirt
Right.
that says I'm here to fix the disaster,
Right. They also
those
don't
people,
think they're looting, right? Like I'll never forget in New York when we were in there, like the National Guard made us come through, like we were all in red scrubs. It was perfect. Our crew, excuse me, our crew was in red scrubs. So we were very identifiable with badges that looked all official. Like we looked like hospital staff, right? Which was really great because they got very present to who we were. We weren't, but there were people looting and they were detaining people. We got put right through. Like literally the National Guard was detaining people. We just got pushed right through. We had
yeah,
no issue. So that's really important. And it's really important to, you were just mentioning, and we were talking about our crew that we bring, but there's oftentimes, well, we'll use temporary labor on these kind of situations. I think we should talk about that a little bit because that can be a definite huge benefit to be able to use temporary labor, but there is definitely a two-edged sword there.
yeah,
So you got to be really careful. So like we would bring people in, and when we started doing, we did a lot of Dollar General stores. And so in New York. And so what we would do is we'd bring two of us from our team. We had 8 of us. That's all we brought back there. But we had 2 of us from our team in the scrubs and the badges and all that. And then we would have 10 temporary labor people that we managed to pull from a really nice pool of people that work with these kind of situations, that we could direct. And we did really great with that. However, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. And I think that's probably something you could probably speak a lot to here, Whitney. You can get yourself a lot of trouble
yeah.
just pulling temporary labor. And like, you got to be careful with that, right?
Yeah, your day to day, you probably are, everyone's familiar with your labor ready, your labor finder, your labor this, your labor that, your find you
Right.
this, your find you that, or your whatever. Granted, those are resources that you have to consider, especially when going to these events, because they have access to a local resource that you may not have access to. But be very, very careful with who
Mhm.
those people are going to be, and based off of the job site that you're going to have, whether or not certain individuals should or should not even be on that job site, period.
Right.
On top of that, there are a few restoration labor companies that have somewhat kind of specialized, or at least have a group of people that focus on the restoration side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Labor can be a huge asset, but at the same time, it can be a huge, huge, huge killer for you.
Yeah.
Um, because you're usually bringing your guys at your set cost from back home, and that cost is probably a lot cheaper than the labor would be. Labor
Mm-hmm.
is never cheap in a cat situation.
Mm-mm.
And the fact
And if
is,
it's cheap, it's probably not worth having, right, Whitney? Like you need to be scared, maybe.
Exactly. I personally have had more luck hiring local individuals. I will hire people from the community who have a big outreach and who have a network of individuals who might have been displaced from their work based off of the events that happen. Um,
Mhm.
those people both need work, as well as the fact that they're a little bit more respectful to the fact of what's happened and whose property they're dealing with. So it's usually worked out really well.
Yeah.
Um, my big issue with labor companies and not having control over who I hire is basically the fact that I don't have control over the other fees that they're going to charge me as well.
Yeah.
My biggest issue is I agree to pay you X amount per guy per day. And I understand that every huge amount of group that I do that you're gonna have to drive them there. So there's going to be a trip fee with somebody, but to charge, for instance, one trip I got charged by a labor company to the van to be sitting outside of my job site all day. So I basically paid their rental vans the whole time that they were there, like on top of
Wow.
the labor. So it was labor rate
Wow.
plus I paid for all their lunches, plus half of their employees we had to house. We didn't get any
Mhm.
discount for housing their employees, which we had to pay for. Secondarily, we were paying their per diem, their this and that, which was normal. But on top of that, they decided that they wanted to add supervisors for every so many employees. And that supervisor that basically didn't have to be on the job site, but he was around, um,
Right. Right.
making sure it's just a whole bunch of shit. And you end up with an
Yeah.
overinflated bill that, a bill that should have been 6 grand is 12 grand. A bill that
Right.
should have been 7 grand is, 10, even if it's close. You go bill your customer based off of what you thought you were going to be paying. You get
Exactly.
your bill 3 weeks down the road and you end up with something that's just so far beyond it. And that
Mhm.
happens with rental companies too. So you have to be careful not only with or with labor companies, but with rental companies. I mean,
Yep.
not to name anybody specifically, but I am dealing with one rental company, two rental companies actually right now, two big national rental companies. Nobody that's in our industry. These are people that are, large scale rental companies.
Yeah.
One of which basically did owned a rent to lease on a piece of equipment and then fired their salesman. And then all of a sudden the rent to lease contract just disappeared and we just had a standard lease. So all the payments
Mhm.
that I made that were supposed to be 80% towards the purchase price
Right. Disappeared.
disappeared.
Yeah.
So that was that whole thing.
Yeah.
Next one was essentially we rented a generator, ran it for 7 days. We had it for 2 months. So we were willing to pay for the 2 month minimum rental time, whatever it is.
Mhm.
They made up the hours of 2,000 and something hours that were ran on it. We ran it for 7 days. I think if
Mhm.
anybody does the math on 7 days at 24 hours, they'll come up with a number far smaller than 2,400 hours. And they
Right.
tried charging me triple run time. And on top of that, they tried charging me a, what was it? A catastrophe surcharge because of the fact that we were in an event and it was
What?
yeah. And I ordered this before the event even happened. So
Wow.
you take a $3,000 bill and they turned it into a $15,000 bill. So
Wow.
that's why you want to work with,
Mhm.
your Will Leos, your Aaron Formans,
Right.
your Scott Tarpleys, your individuals out there who know the
Right.
industry and aren't looking to necessarily bend you over backwards.
Right.
They just want to make the money that they rent you the equipment for, and they're pretty fair about doing so. So
Right.
make sure you work with the right companies,
Mhm.
NDT, Dry Express, and
Mhm. Right.
Scott Tarpley on his business. You got to
Mhm.
call those right. Those are the right people. Don't go thinking that
Right.
you're going to do stuff with the big name dogs because their
Right.
contracts are deep, their add-ons are deeper, and their
Yeah.
bills are even bigger. So
Yep.
work with who you want to work with. Getting back to labor companies, just be very, very careful. It's
Mhm.
hard enough on a day-to-day back home, but when you're dealing with a cat situation, imagine the
Right.
influx of individuals who want quick money
Yep.
paid on a daily basis.
Yep.
Just be very careful, especially if you're working commercial. Those
Mhm.
are the type of individuals who could literally lose you a job simply because of the fact that somebody from that company asks an individual who they are and does a little bit of checking on it, and boom. And make sure that if you're going to partner up with people, this is a big
Big, Whitney. That was what I was going to say next. Yeah. Yeah.
Make sure that if you are going to partner up with people, that you have a clear viewpoint of what the common goal is with everybody within the group that you are going with. Make sure that everybody understands that there's a lot of costs that go into the trip, and whoever it is in the group that has to pay for those costs, you have to understand where they're coming from when they're trying to essentially help through the process. And these things don't happen overnight. So don't beat each other up because it's not working the first 2, 3, 4 weeks. Granted, it may not work ever. And you should make sure when you leave, you left in the same condition as when you started, as friends, as partners, as people in the business that respect each other. Don't let it get to a situation where it gets out of hand.
I completely agree with you, Whitney. And I will say this as a 30-year accountant as well and tax preparer. I've seen so many business partnerships end horribly. Started out best friends, and people are not only no longer speaking to each other, but they're suing each other. And, you know, I've done this so many times. I've done this several times myself, and I thought I knew better than this, but I've done this where I entered in verbal agreements with people in this industry, and I thought we were both on the same page. I understood one thing, and they understood another. I'm not saying I was right. I'm saying there was definitely two different perceptions going on. So if you're going to go out and do a cat loss situation and work with somebody, I don't care if you were born in the same hospital on the same day, you're cousins, you are best friends for 35 years, you need to get everything in writing. I cannot stress that enough, but I don't care. Honestly, there are people that would maybe disagree with me.
I've made a mistake myself. I mean, I'm right here with you, and I learn from my mistakes, and I'm here to help people learn from my mistakes so that they don't have to make them themselves.
Yes, and I'm not saying you have to go get a lawyer, you guys. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying
write it on a napkin.
Thank you. I'm saying write it on a napkin, write it on an email.
Yeah.
Each person has a
and
copy.
Don't overcomplicate things, because also don't try to throw so much into it. You know, we did a trip recently to Texas with a group of guys, and we had a pretty good understanding at the beginning of what was supposed to happen. First money in, first money out, this and that, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. No guarantees of any work, no guarantees of any money, no anything. It worked out at the end that we're all still friends. We all still talk. So that's good.
That's awesome.
There was a little bit of animosity between myself and one of the other guys, which, you know, we've hit that in the head, and it's not worth even dealing with. And, you know, we're both bigger than that. But at the end of the day, you don't want to let it get to that point. And for us in Texas, you know, and I'm a brutally honest person, and I don't care. I'm not afraid to admit failure. I don't want to sit here and say that we failed in Texas. I failed on achieving the goals of which I set when I went out there. But I don't think that the trip was a failure, because I look at Texas as a learning experience, specifically because of the fact that when I look at it in relation to a job and a trip like mine on North Dakota, where they actually had structure and they had some sort of licensing need in place, and, you know, they were checking who was doing work. In Texas, it was horrible, and I will never travel to Texas again unless somebody wants to take my equipment and just borrow it. I'm never going to Texas again. That's just one thing that I've learned. I will do Florida over and over again. I'll do New York over again. I'll probably go to Minot if it ever happened again. You know,
would you come to Washington, Whitney? Would you come to Washington?
Probably. It's really far.
I know, but it's a really freaking cool state.
I really hope nothing bad ever happens in Washington.
I agree. So,
I hope Florida gets nailed. I keep saying to people, it's like, I'm so jealous of your trips. Why can't my town just get destroyed by a hurricane? I'm like, man, maybe not. I won't be the most popular guy in the area. So um, we can't really have that viewpoint. But
Right.
at the same time, I just want to see every restorer in the industry take something from this, whether it's the insurance aspect, the documentation, the communication stuff, the phones and whatnot, the equipment inventories, the PPs, the clothing, the contents, which we haven't even gotten to yet,
No.
or whatever we're going to talk about next. I
Mm-hmm.
want them to take something from this and say, hey, listen, maybe I have a different perspective on going into a cat trip. And
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
and we were talking about doing this. The funny thing is we were talking about doing this as our first before Maryland got hit, before the
Yeah.
first tropical storm or subtropical storm, the first joke of the season, basically, that was just blown up by the media to sell commercial space.
Right.
Those are the reasons why. And here's one thing that I want to bring up is I don't think that we need to play into all the hype that the media does, because essentially
Totally.
if we do so, people are going to give up on cat trips. People aren't going to think it's sexy because they're going to travel to this event where it happened in Maryland, for instance, where it's one street where all the local contractors are probably going to swallow up all the work because it happened 2 years ago and they're literally still in contract with probably half of them. So
Right.
there's going to be a lot of people very disappointed when they travel to Maryland here. And
Yeah.
it's unfortunate. And, I didn't want to tell anybody, don't go, you're stupid if you go or this or that. Go, by all means, see what it's all about, see what's happening. Most people are going to take a trip through Main Street, drive down the road, see all the desiccants set up, see all the work going on from all the people who have contracts. Some of them might get work as well. Good for them.
Right.
But the
Right.
likelihood is it's a small event, so there are going to be people that get left out on that one,
Right.
which leads us into what to do on site, guys. When we
Yeah.
get there, we've talked about the clothing, the PPE, the tools, and everything. You get that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Now you show up on site. Your guys are there. They're
Yeah.
starting to get to work. What are you going to do with your contents? And this is we're going to leave to Vanessa, because this is her forte, and I personally love cleaning contents, but I'm not an expert in it by any form or fashion. I'm a drying guy. So please, let's talk about some contents.
Well, it's really interesting to me how contents get shoved aside so much, and yet they really are the most important thing on a claim when it comes to the homeowner, right? Like, I get they're not necessarily when it comes to us saving and dealing with structure. I completely understand that, and I agree with you. But on a emotional level, contents to a homeowner are what's more important. When it comes to saving the kitchen cabinets, are they going to care about that as much as saving their wedding dress or grandma's chest, hope chest? No, they're not. So when we come into a cat loss situation like this, you're going to deal with there's a lot of raging emotion, like even way more so than you would deal on a single loss situation. And partly because of what Whitney said, right? Like, we've got the media hyping this up and they're already getting people all emotional and disturbed and all of that going on. And so you come across the contents, and oftentimes, unfortunately, not because of any like ill will or unskilled contractors, I want to say, but oftentimes they get pushed aside. The contents do. They're like, okay, well, let's just shove all the stuff over in the corner and we're going to go dry out the structure, or we're going to go suck the water out of over here and we're just going to push these contents over here. And what happens is it gets very difficult because we're in a big cat loss situation and you're dealing with, like, we got umpteen jobs to get to, right? We have 14 jobs to monitor today. You don't always have the time that is needed to deal with the contents on a loss situation. So something I think that's good for people to think about if they're deploying to a cat loss situation is, do you maybe have a contents person in your company? Do you have someone that could come along who could head up temporary crew to help you move contents out? Because that's not, to be in all honesty, a highly skilled ability, right? Like it can be pretty simple to move some contents out of a structure, this sort of thing. but do you have somebody who's skilled in content handling with a homeowner to be able to bring along to this kind of a situation or loss? I think it's something that's missed, and greatly needed. I know when we were in, I want to say it was Irene. I think it was Irene. We had so many beautiful homes that were affected in Maryland, and we wound up going on to New York to commercial losses. But in Maryland, we had so many people who were service people, right? And they had items that were from all over the world. And literally, not only was their structure flooded, but these contents were just soaking wet and gross. And no one knew how to handle them. So obviously, me being there, that was kind of like cool, because I kind of like specialize in that, as you said, Whitney. So I was able to kind of help and direct all of that situation. But I think it's something for contractors to really think about. And I'm really working hard on expanding everybody's thought process when it comes to the contents part of things. Again, we're here to restore, and I understand that. We are also here to make money. I mean, I get that. We're not a bunch of nonprofit companies here. We're all, I understand that. However, we're also here to help. And I feel, and I'm very passionate about, some of the greatest need that you have when you're coming across these kind of situations. Like when I looked at that, what was happening in Maryland right now, and that water just rushing down that beautiful Main Street, all I could think about was, oh my gosh, I wonder what stuff is inside those buildings that's just getting flooded with water. It's very upsetting. And it's definitely something that when you're going to these type of situations, you've got to think about the fact that you are going there to help people. Yes, you're going there to make money. I get it, you guys. And we're going there to set things up, and logistically, as Whitney, you said, we got to make sure we got the crew, and that we got the equipment, and we got food and water and lodging for everybody. But we also need to be able to think about, how do we handle content? So how do we help these people deal with the emotional side of what they're going through? And I'm really passionate about that. And, that can mean that we maybe need to have resources for that. There's pods, there's other ways that we may need to be able to figure to get these contents out of the structure. And sometimes, you guys, I've been on these cat losses, where we actually had to rely on the homeowner to help us get a lot of these items out, because there was nowhere to put these things. There was logistically, there was no pods. There was no no storage units. There was nothing to do with these items. So we just had to deal with them and maybe help adjust the drying. I know some of the guys that were doing the drying and the structures would help us rearrange the contents in a way that we could do air movers and do extra dehues. And so we could, help facilitate drying of the contents to try to salvage some of those as well. So I know that might seem a little bit to some of you, but I really want to encourage you to really think about, do you have somebody in your team that would be a good person to help handle that side of the losses? Because not only is it a lost side of revenue, because it is, I mean, that's all. When we go on cat losses, we do dry out and fire cleanup, structure cleaning as well. But primarily what I do is contents. And there's huge profit in this. Okay. So I want to stress that. But also there's, the side of, this is really where the helping people on a emotional level, I guess.
Well, it's where a lot of the value comes in what we do.
Yes. Thank you.
This way,
yes.
I mean, we call ourselves restorers, and this is where I said something about it the other day, and I'm going to keep talking about this. This is going to be my thing for the next little while, I think. You want to call yourself a restorer, then act like it. And
exactly,
if you're not a restorer, you're just a handyman or a contractor or just a guy with a DHU, basically, that's fine. You're a guy with a DHU, and I'm not going to take that away from you, but don't call yourself a restorer, because you don't care about saving shit. You just want to throw it away and bill for the hours that you did, or content manipulation or disposal or whatever it may be.
Right.
Fact is too many people forget that we work for the client, and they think
Yep.
that they work for the insurance carriers, and they're looking at things the same way that a lot of other people look at things.
Yep.
And we need to start looking at them as emergency room doctors, like you say. That's the
Yep.
same analogy I use all the time. We're specialists in our trade. We're not just doctors. We're
Right.
we're not just contractors. We're restorers. They're not just
Exactly.
doctors. They're emergency medical, emergency technicians, emergency doctors, if you will. They've put in the extra time making sure that they could essentially perform at that level in order
Yep.
to save lives, which
Exactly.
our work is to work at a certain level in order to save
Right.
structures and the property within them. Granted, sometimes contents will be beyond saving,
Right.
but there's some amazing stuff that you can do as far as saving things. And
Yep.
if you can get paid to save something for somebody rather than throw it away and just buy a new one, that's huge.
Huge.
Also adds, it's a huge value add on to the customer, as well as a
Yep.
value add on to your company itself, in the sense that, if you were just out there doing water, fire, and then you doing mold, and then you're starting to do this. Well, good thing about contents is water, fire, mold, or even bio. Contents are affected. Granted, if someone's brain matters on a shirt or something, it's probably going in the trash. But there might be a way to save a painting. There might be a way to save some things that are more valuable and have sentimental value, especially even if you're considering release of liabilities and getting things to a certain point to whereas they're acceptable to a customer because they don't want to throw it away. If they're willing to pay you for it, then you need to make sure that you take advantage of that opportunity. There are too many people in our industry, and I think that some people just want the easy road, and there's nothing wrong with just doing MIT and not doing any rebuild or not doing any contents. There's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. More so than in fact, I don't want people going and putting things back together when they don't have a clue how to. Taking it apart is one thing. Putting it back together is a whole nother. Understanding that is just as difficult, maybe not as difficult, I should say, but it's difficult. And doing it is just as important as understanding the science behind drying. And we had an amazing post. Chuck Dewald posted something yesterday that I think everybody needs to take attention to, and it has nothing to do with cat work except for the fact of drying. And just read the post. If you don't believe in what he's talking about, then maybe you should be on another group, because all sorts of fake shit. But contents is so important. And when you're dealing with contents for commercial structures, it may be a little different than for residential structures. When you're dealing with things that are insured differently than other ways, you have to look at things. Every situation is different. I know I talked about this the other day. No job is the same. There is no such thing as any X amount of days drying. Just because it's Cat 3 doesn't mean you can't save something. There could be something in a Cat 3 situation that could technically be saved. And if someone's going to sit there and tell me that you have to throw everything away in a Cat 3 situation, I will find something in that house that I can clean and give you back, just to prove you wrong. Period.
And it's not just about so in a commercial loss, you can really look at how much you're going to save somebody, because there can be huge. I mean, when you're talking about 100 computers, you're talking about saving someone. That's not only a huge headache and nightmare for this company to have to replace 100 computers, but you're also talking about saving on the insurance policy a ton of money, being able to clean 100 computers. But when you're talking about a one-off situation, Whitney, I mean, I know we're talking about cat losses here, but I mean, cat contents are my passion. And when you're dealing with people's contents, you are dealing on a whole different level of restoration. And that's definitely true. That's there. I think everybody can accept that and understand that, right?
That's a whole other specialty within our industry itself.
It is, but and I'm all in it, and I think this about me at this point, Wendy, and anybody who's ever watched my Ask Anissa videos and all the stuff I do. I'm very in it for the fact that I'm very passionate about helping people keep their memories and their stuff together. I'm really in that. But you guys, there is so much profit that is overlooked and just skipped over as secondary. I'm sorry, my sunshine is totally Is that like making my video all
Still
weird?
got sunshine. That's crazy.
Well, so I'm on the Pacific Ocean, literally. Like I can hear the waves out my window, right? So like the sun's setting and it's all kind of being
All
lights.
beautiful and serene, and
Right, right.
it's
On the beach.
like
But
90 degrees, 100% humidity, and dark.
oh no, it's like 70 of perfect hair. So just so you know, Whitney. Um, so I mean, there's a huge amount of money that gets left on the table with these contents, you guys. And part of why I know, Whitney, when you and I talked about this and we wanted to do these videos together was to help everybody do better in their business, right? Well, how can I help people do better in their business other than talking about the profit margins and how they
People
can
are always
add?
looking to figure out how to make more money at the end of the
Right,
day. You wonder
right,
why the 10 and 10 thing is so
right.
awesome right
So
now for so many people, because
right.
it's just
So
make me more
mhm.
money in the greed aspect. Well, here's an opportunity to not be
Yes,
greedy, make more
yes,
money, add more value to
right.
your service. And at the end of
Yes,
the day, be
absolutely.
more so of a professional or a
Yes.
specialist than you already are.
And you
It
don't have
doesn't
to
mean
argue about O&P with an adjuster, you guys. Like
I'm
the
not,
profit
yeah.
margins on contents are ridiculous. It makes O&P look like nothing.
The biggest thing
So
though for contents is just making sure that people don't blindly jump into contents cleaning, because
yes.
the fact that, a lot of people jumped into restoration because of the
Yep.
profit margins. We don't want
Yep.
people jumping into contents because of the same thing, because it's
Exactly.
definitely more detailed and
Yeah.
more
Yep. But
intricate
you should look
than
at it. I
structural
don't want you to
restoration.
overlook it. That's my big thing, right,
Oh,
Whitney?
it needs to be considered as a
Yes.
secondary resource
Yep.
for
Yep.
restoration contractors to basically expand their
Yep.
businesses and take
Yep.
advantage of all that's
And
out.
provide a full service, right?
Full
Like,
service. It's
yes.
part of the full service
Yep.
package. I mean, there's
Totally
contents,
agree.
there's structure, there's build back, and then there's essentially just peace of mind and psychological help that
Right.
you need to do for help half these people. So
Right.
we're all psychologists at the end of the day.
I know,
Uh,
right?
which brings us into the net. Well, that doesn't bring us into the next thing, because you're going to need a psychologist after you talk to enough people about pricing. But want to touch on
Oh, right.
three three last things basically to wrap up the day, and um,
Okay.
two,
What's up?
one of which has nothing to do with the other two. But the first one is the pricing, time and materials versus square foot versus bid pricing.
Mm,
I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to tell you anything other than this. Make sure before you leave for an event, you know how you're going to charge. And if you have to adjust it accordingly when you get there,
yeah,
make sure that you have a plan of action as to how you're going to adjust it, and an understanding of all your true overheads and
yeah,
costs associated with your trip. Besides that, do whatever the hell you want to do. Charge time and
yeah,
materials. Make sure you have a price list and get it signed. Square foot prices. Make sure you get your contract signed with the square
mhm,
foot price, the detail determined in there, as well as a total of square footage on the job. And the bid price, well, if you're doing a bid, then just give them the number, get it signed, and make sure that you clearly have broken down a payment structure, which gets me into getting paid. Why we're all out here doing this,
yeah,
getting paid. I saw somebody on the post the other day, basically, or earlier today, say when they're on a job and they're doing cat work, they charge 25% upon signing the contract. They charge like another 50% when they're delivering the equipment or something. They're doing another percentage before they start drying, whereas before it's even dry, they're like at 10%. I'm just like, that's absolutely ridiculous. And I don't know who you're giving advice to, but please, people, don't take that advice. Make sure you have
right.
a payment structure, though, that covers and doesn't leave you hanging with 50, 60, 40% out
Mhm.
owed to you at the end of the job when you're dry. Because remember, people, when you're on a cat situation, you're likely not doing the build back. And being that you're not doing the build back,
Yeah,
when you're done drying and you give them the certificate of completion and you sign off on everything and everything's done, your contractor's affidavit and everything like that, you have nothing, absolutely nothing. So make sure you're not leaving at that point. I don't like to leave more than 10% on the table. And I'll even take draws based off of days while we're drying. I'll bill people every couple days for their job, and we track things. If it's time and materials, if it's square foot, I'll take 50% down. I'll take 30 or 40% more when we're at 80% dry. And then when we're basically at about 100% dry, we ask them for the final payment and we pull our equipment. And usually it works out pretty well.
Yep.
When you're doing the bid, same way. It's the same thing. It's just a line item.
Yep.
Make sure you have clear payment terms, though. Make sure these are put in your contract, your agreement, your napkin, your hand, whatever signed. If it's a piece of drywall, just cut it out and have them sign it and put it in the truck, put it in the bag so you don't cross-contaminate your vehicle or your hotel room. Cross-contamination jokes are epic tonight. Be sure not to leave money on the table, guys. You are out here traveling away from your home. I'm not telling you to price gouge. I am not telling you to even charge 10 and 10 because I don't like it. And I'm never going to tell anybody to charge 10 and 10. I'm just going to tell you to know what you should be charging and charge the right amount of money so that you make what you're supposed to be making or what you expect to be making on this trip. And if what you think before, back to the step number one, are you in a good position to leave? Yep. Part of that is this. If your prices that you expect to charge people are far greater than what you can find on your Xactimate, I'm talking far greater, and you just think that because it's a cat situation, you can charge these prices, stay at home. Don't even go. Don't even bother. Don't even bother. You need to understand how to essentially tweak your system to work with the increased costs that you're going to be associated with the trip. If you do it smart, your costs won't be much. Granted, my RV payment is $300 a month. It sleeps 1, 2, 3, 4 of us comfortably, and it could probably sleep 7 of us if it really had to. That saves a ton of money. It has air conditioning, TVs, and my guys even get to watch satellite TV, as I spoke about earlier. And we got a grill, so think about that. They get to grill chicken and burgers at the end of the night.
Wait a minute, I'm going to go on a cat loss with you.
You'll learn. I mean, our first cat loss, we didn't even you don't even want to know. Our first cat loss. That was not fun. So that was recent addition to my fleet, even because it's just the fact that hotels get so expensive. When I was in Sandy, I was paying, I think it was $1,000 or $2,000 a week for the hotel up in New York. Yeah, that was insane. We were looking at renting a house. The house or the apartment that we were looking at renting there downtown Manhattan was $7,000 or $8,000 a month, and it was like a 2-bedroom little shithole.
Yeah. So, yeah, right.
Be prepared, and the more prepared you can be, it's like being the guy that packs his lunch to go to work. You're going to save that extra money. You're going to make that extra bit more at the end of the year. You're the guy who, you're just planning accordingly. Don't be the guy with your pants caught down. I'm not going to lie. When I went down to the Keys, we tried 3 times to get in because of our passes, which got us in, but didn't get us in like when they were still, collecting bodies in. And, the next day we did, and we were just like, fuck it, we're going to go try again. We forgot to load all the stuff back up because we thought we were coming back home. We thought that we were going to get rejected again. And they let us in.
Oh,
no. We were like, well, we're not leaving. So we had like a case of water and some tuna packages and some basic stuff. And it was just like, it was horrible.
Yeah.
It was horrible. But we were sleeping in our car. I had to sleep in our car because my partner at the time down there, his house got destroyed. Nobody had power. Nobody had air conditioning. The best place to be was your car at that point in time for 2 or 3 nights until we could find a person that actually had a house to sleep in, an AC unit, like a window AC unit and a generator. So it's not glorious, people. No. It's not. I mean, it can be. Granted, if your guy, like if you get a camper and you learn to figure it out like me after 10 years or 14 years of doing cat work, Scott Tarpley, and you have your whole entire convoy of all the cool things, all the toys and tricks and everything.
But Whitney, the stories afterward are glamorous. It's always fun to talk about the mold in your ponytail after 3 days of being wet, and
the sinus infections that you got from every job that you went to.
And the 39 hours straight of work without sleep. I mean, come on. That's like exciting and glorious.
Those are the stories. Well, first off, those are the only stories I have left anymore. So besides my college stories, which are not what I write home about. But, I really hope that everything that we covered, which was a plethora of information
Yes.
here, and I think that we pretty much touched on everything that you're going to encounter on your first, second, fifth, last,
Mhm.
whatever number trip it is.
Mhm.
And I really hope that people take a little bit of caution before they travel for the first time.
Yeah.
Individuals who've been doing this for years, like Art Diamond and obviously Scott Tarpley and
Mhm.
other guys like that, they
Yep.
know what's going on. Their
Right.
contracts are solid. You need to
Right.
talk to these individuals. These are resources for you and
Yep.
for you people. So take advantage of them.
And our intent with doing this tonight was not to discourage any of you, by the way. It was
No,
actually to encourage you. It was to discourage you to not to go about it the wrong way, the fly by the seat of your pants way that, some people are like, oh, fake it till you make it. That doesn't work when you're dealing with cat losses, in my opinion, at all, at
no,
all.
no. It
Also,
works in our industry for a lot of people, but
yeah,
not
well,
in Texas.
no.
It doesn't.
It,
It
no.
will literally sink your ship. And if you're one of those,
Yep.
and I don't have anything against individuals who might be playing themselves as bigger than they are in our industry, because of the fact is everybody has at some point, and it's kind of,
Sure.
we all walk into an insurance agent's office and tell them we can handle any loss that comes our way.
Right.
I had the first time I ever talked to somebody and told them I could handle any loss, I had one DU and like 3 fans. I was not prepared to handle any loss that they threw
Okay,
my
but that's different. Like, that's not walking into like New York and walking
no,
into a
no,
$100 general store and going, yeah,
no,
I can do this. I mean, that's
no.
different. Right.
There's
Right.
badges of honor that we get, and I think that this is our little club that you would consider with our industry. So if our industry had an Eagle Scout badge, uh, I think that the cat work would probably be
I
the
agree.
test that you would have to go through in order to get that badge.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I'm so proud of every highlight of my career
Yeah.
basically happened outside of my hometown. So
Yeah. Yeah. I
I
agree.
I sound like the biggest bragger when I'm telling people what I've done. I sound like I'm full of myself because all I can talk about is all these cat jobs and yada yada blah blah blah. But I am so damn proud of the fact that in Hurricane Sandy in
Mhm.
downtown Manhattan, I had the first job, the first commercial building, Wall Street Plaza, back open and reoccupied by tenants. The first one in the whole downtown Manhattan. And basically, if I have to go to my grave with that being my biggest accomplishment, I'm happy.
Good.
I'm good.
Yeah,
So
well, once someone's been on a cat loss, they'll understand that. And,
yeah,
that was, I mean, I know you and I talked, I think it was last week when we first thought about doing this together. And, our drive and passion about talking to everybody was, again, to, to warn, I guess, if you will, to give some insight and to encourage and hopefully inspire. Because at the end of the day, that's what I feel like I want to inspire all of you to, I mean, y'all know
we'll
my
call it
passion.
constructive inspiration.
Yes. Yes. I mean, at the end of the day, my passion and excitement is content. However, I've done all the other stuff too, but I want to encourage you guys. I want to in a constructive way, not a blowing smoke kind of way and bullshitting you kind of way. I just want to be honest about it. So, after listening to us tonight, if you guys are like, okay, well, hurricane season's coming up or tornado season or whatever. I don't even know. I'm on the West Coast. I don't have this stuff, by the way, you guys. Like, I have to travel to the East Coast to go to all this stuff because we don't have this stuff. All we have is Yellowstone, which they say is going to be the super volcano that's going to erupt one day and kill all of the world. But
Better get your bunker built.
you're right, right. But I don't know. I've been here a lot of years, and
I want
Yellowstone.
to go to Yellowstone and meet Yogi the Bear.
It is freaking cool. It's amazing. And it's really cool to ride a Harley through it. We've done that a couple times. Right? Snowed on us on a Harley in August, by the way. Most ridiculous thing I've ever, yeah, it was horrid, but
I didn't think that existed ever.
it did. It does. It did. I lived through it. So, but what I would hope to get out of all of this tonight, you guys, is to encourage you and inspire you to learn more, go do some due diligence, check out the situation, and get involved in cat losses. Because the one thing I do feel is, and I do know from in this industry, is that we need qualified, amazing, good, skilled restorers who care to get involved in these kind of losses. I think that's really important, Whitney.
Oh, super important. And utilizing the resources that you have in this day and age is insane. I mean, my first cat loss, I don't even remember the type of phone that I had when I went to Cedar Rapids.
I had a flip phone.
It was a flip phone. I think it was a Nextel, honestly.
Right.
I couldn't take pictures, and it's amazing to me because it's like now I can go live on job sites and I can do this and I can do that, and I can talk to all these people who essentially are doing all the things that I love doing. And everyone has such a absolute huge opportunity today moving forward to be able to reach out to people who have literally done this. And even if you're not sure about going and you just want to see what it's about, reach out to the people who are on the ground. Tell them you want to come check it out, walk some jobs, spend a day in town with them, take them out to dinner, whatever. Bring them in some clean clothes because they're probably going to be, you know, whatever. Take advantage of the kindness. We have guys like Aaron and guys that are in our ambassador group. I mean, I cannot tell you how willing Stephen Hall, I can't tell you how awesome these group of guys are and how willing they are to go help other restorers regardless of what company they're with, what group they're in, whatever it is. That's what we need in our industry. And this is what keeps me going. That's the fuel to my fire. That's the energy behind what keeps my motivation thriving in this whole entire fight to get us where we're trying to go. And I am by no means the only person, nor am I the sole leader of this whole entire thing. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of leaders in this group, and I think that we all need to be considered as equals in the sense of things, because I don't want the responsibility nor the title of the sole person within our organization. And I really want everybody to reach out to, whether it's myself or yourself or anybody through these videos. Like you were saying, we really want to encourage you to just do things properly. Keyword, do things, and not quit, and take the risk and step outside of your comfort zone and go to that next level and make yourself completely uncomfortable, but do it. Understanding the risks so that if you do fall on your face, you can at least turn your head to the left or the right and have some teeth. You know, you'll want to be able to still smile. The black and blue eye, the scrape on the face, all go away. But the only thing you can do to fix your grill is to get new teeth, and that shit is expensive. And you don't want to do it. I love analogies, and I'll end it on this. I want you all to follow myself and Anessa and make sure that you are paying attention with one ear to what we're saying and another ear to the industry as a whole, so that you can relate our opinions as well as our insights to the things that you are seeing take place on a day-to-day. Don't take 100% of what we're saying, but hopefully take it to heart enough to whereas you can consider it when the time comes that it is necessary for you to put this information into play. And we're not pushing anything, anybody, ourselves, whatever. This is about helping you guys to just do things in a way that is not going to make you go bankrupt or go out of business the first day. And if you made it through step one and we helped you because you basically said, oh man, that's a good point, I really wanted to go, but my business sure shit ain't even ready for me because it's just me. And if I leave, my business leaves. Well, if your business leaves, then most likely, you know, that can't go. When I go on my cat trips, my company is ran. They need a phone call. That's basically the most that they'll ever need from me, is a phone call and a credit card authorization for purchases over so big of a size. That's it. Don't let your company run you. Run your company. Use this information in order to help you make the best decisions moving forward. Go out there and kick every cat event's ass. Make as much money as you can possibly make, Don't forget about what's important. Bring value to your clients. Do everything that's absolutely necessary. Take care of your employees, and don't forget who you work for. The homeowner, the property owner, the industry owner, it doesn't matter. You don't work for the insurance carrier. You're simply just there to communicate with them in a cordial manner to make sure that the process goes smooth for your client. That's it. And don't get that twisted. So at the end of the day, guys, this has been about a
I know.
long time, like
You're
hour and a
late
half.
where you are, dude.
Hour and a half. So that was good. Hopefully we can keep that around an hour to an hour and a half for all of our shows. We're going to do 6 episodes week after week, back to back for a 6-week period. Then we're going to take an undisclosed break so that we can get our minds back together and plan out the next 6. But we will be back same time, same place next Tuesday, 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. And I don't know what time that is out there.
That's 6 p.m. on my side.
6
A little
p.m.
earlier.
over on the beautiful sun setting time.
That's
We'll
right.
have to buy Anissa some shades and some blinds to mess up her video and get me jealous of the fact that she still has light over there. But Anissa, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I look forward to doing more of these in the future. And yeah, I think this was a great first start, and I look forward to many more.
Absolutely, Whitney. Thank you so much for being what you are for this industry. I just love NORP and what you guys are doing. I think it's great. It's all about coming together and education and inspiration to me. So
100%. Thank you so much. And I really do appreciate that. We are going to keep fighting our hardest and get this through to where we're going. And hopefully everyone will get on the ship and we can just start connecting all the missing links together to make sure that we can, have a little bit of clarity within this industry that is just so intriguing at this point in time. We'll leave it there. We'll talk about so much more in the next couple of weeks, but hope everybody's having a great night. Take care, and we will see you all soon. Good night, Anissa. Talk to you soon.
Good night.
Bye-bye.